Ladies and gentlemen, in a couple of moments, we're going to begin the service. We ask for those that have a cell phone or pager, if you could turn it to the silent mode. And if you are standing, we ask that you please be seated. Officiating today is Rabbi Stephen Stark Lowenstein.
Death has taken our beloved Barbara. Our friends grieve in their darkened world. In their silence there is lamentation. In their tears there is loneliness. Lost in their sorrow, may they find the presence of loving friends. Hear them, O God, be with them. For Barbara's love that united us in life which death cannot sever. For her companionship that we shared along life's path, which now continues through the tenderness of memory. For the gifts of her heart and mind that brought us joy and happiness and is now a precious, precious remembrance. For all these and more, we give our thanks to God. As we gather here today to remember her, as we gather here in this sacred space, we extend our deepest condolences to her family, to Marla and Jonathan, Cindy and Phil, and to Michael, to grandchildren Stephen and Jenna, Jordan and Lauren, Hannah and Adriel, Eli and Tala and Phoebe, and Summer and Mez, and Felicia and Felicia. What's that? And family and friends, great-grandchildren, Sophia and Maddie and Landon and Mason and Azaria and Ashriel and Ryla and Ziv. A blessing, a good life, and also ultimately a good death. And for that we are truly grateful. Grateful for the years that she spent on this earth. Grateful for family and friends. The first thing we do when we gather at a Jewish funeral is when we hear of the death of a loved one, our ancestors would actually tear their clothes. We no longer tear our actual clothes, but we make a small little tear in a ribbon to serve as a reminder of our hearts that are torn. Only direct mourners in the Jewish tradition are obligated to wear a kriya ribbon. In the Jewish tradition, direct mourners are children, siblings, spouses, and parents. And so it's to the three of you that we turn. Since you are the three direct mourners, we ask that the three of you please stand. Know that there will always be people at your side, there will always be people behind you and next to you. No one can walk this path alone, but you walk this path together, one step at a time. We make a small little tear in this ribbon. We don't tear a piece of the ribbon away, but we just make a tear in the ribbon to serve as a reminder of our hearts that are torn. Even the best seamstress in the world would not be able to repair this ribbon without leaving a mark. And in many ways, your hearts will always have a small little mark for an amazing, amazing love. Got nicer and nicer as she got older and older. For that, we're grateful. And so we simply say the blessing Baruch, 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 Atah, Atah, Adonai, Adonai, Eloheinu, Eloheinu, Melech, Melech, Ha'olam, Ha'olam, Dayan, Dayan, Ha'emet, Ha'emet. We praise you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, Dayan, Ha'emet, the judge of truth. For it's God's judgment that is taken for at this time. And we accept that. And we continue to move on together. Know that there are many people behind you, there are many people on the live stream, there are many people that will walk this path with you. But as you walk it, know that you do so as Jewish mourners. And we extend our deepest condolences to you and to your entire families, those here, those with us in spirit. We find comfort from the words of our tradition. Psalm 121. Esa enai el ha'rim me'ayin yavo Ezri. Ezri me'im Adonai oseh shamayim va'aretz. I lift up my eyes to the mountains. What? What is the source of my help? My help comes from God, maker of heaven and earth. God will not let your foot give way. Your protector will not slumber. See, the protector of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. God is your guardian. God is your protection at your right hand. The sun will not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. God will guard your soul, your going and coming, now and forever. No matter what faith tradition we may be from, of the 150 Psalms that we have in our tradition, of the 150 Psalms, the 23rd Psalm is by far the most famous. It's used by all faith traditions to remind us that we walk together through the valley of the shadow of death, and that we're not alone. In Hebrew, the words are so beautiful. Adonai ro'i lo aksar benodesha yarbitzeni, Almei menuchot yinachaleni nafshi yashovev, Yancheni b'magle tzedek lama'an shemo. Gam ki elech b'geit sal maved, lo irara ki ata imadi. Ach tov v'chesed yirdafuni kol yemei chayai, v'shavti b'beit Adonai la'orech yamim. Please join with me. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Those who walk through the valley of the shadow wear no shoes. Their feet are cut and torn as they stumble through the darkness. With no time to pack a bag or say goodbye, they begin their journeys unprepared. Some are dressed in finery, jewels gleaming like stars in the dim light. Others are in pajamas, work clothes, prayer shawls, or bathing suits. Some clutch briefcases, papers, blankets, teddy bears. In Barbara's case, a 3-wood. And everyone wears their grief. With each cautious, painful step, they move further into the abyss. The chasm grows. Stretching out the fingers, they trace the grooves carved by previous pilgrims. Handholds hewn into the cold canyon walls. Sometimes they march in silence. Other times sing hauntingly beautiful melodies. Their voices echo to the very vaults of heaven. The river that created this place does not flow from on high. It was formed and filled by the tears of those whose bruised souls traverse the trail, and no one walks here alone. Stumbling pilgrims are quickly caught and held aloft by those who travel beside them. And in time for some, a light appears in the distance, piercing through the veil of darkness. Hope, long buried, rises to the surface like a beacon. And with it, the weary marchers ascend to find a world that's been changed forever by their absence. They return with pale faces and broken hearts. But now, as experienced travelers, they will always have a suitcase packed and ready. We're never ready. But we have to have a suitcase packed and ready, knowing that this day will come. After 93 amazing years, we gather here to remember. We gather here to celebrate a life well lived. I invite you to look at the front of the service supplement. That's a great picture. That's a great picture of a woman holding up a glass saying L'chaim. Jordan, I hope it's one of your beverages. L'chaim. She came into this world in 1931. She left this world in 2025. That's an amazing amount of time. Linda Ellis wrote a beautiful poem called The Dash about those two dates. And here's what she said. She said, I read of a man who stood to speak at the funeral of his friend. He referred to the dates on her tombstone from the beginning to the end. He noted that first came the date of her birth and spoke the following date with tears. But he said what mattered most was the dash between those years. For that dash represents all the time she spent alive on earth. And now only those who loved her know what that little line is worth. For it matters not how much we own, the cars, the house, the cash. What matters is how we live in love and how we spend our dash. So think about this long and hard. Are there things you'd like to change? For you never know how much time is left that can still be rearranged. If we can just slow down enough to consider what is true and what is real, and always try to understand the way that other people feel, and be less quick to anger and show appreciation more, and love the people in our lives like we've never loved before. If we treat each other with respect and more often wear a smile, remembering that that special dash might only last a while. So when your eulogy is being read with your life's actions to rehash, would you be proud of the things they say about how you spent your dash? The dash from 1931 to 2025 is amazing. Who could ask for any more? But what we do with that dash for each one of us is what's most important. And Barbara knew that. And through family stories, you're going to hear about an incredibly profound individual who made this world better. As a nana, as a mother, as a grandmother, as a great-grandmother, she was able to see her children's children's children. When you can see into the fourth generation, Jewish tradition says you are guaranteed a place in the world to come. I hope that's the case, because she was able to see into that generation and affect that generation. But as you look at the beautiful picture on the cover of the service, as a rabbi, I often quote theologians. Theologians are smart people who apply the world to religion and understand it. And there are amazing theologians in Judaism, people like Abraham Joshua Heschel and Martin Buber, really smart people. There are theologians like Pastor Martin Niemöller in the general world. But when I look at that picture, I think of the great theologians of Simon and Garfunkel. Because in a song that they wrote called Bookends, they seem to understand what it's taken me 30 years as a rabbi to fully appreciate. A bookend holds a set of books on a shelf. There can be something before, there can be something after, but it holds the books on that shelf from one book to another. It holds them in place. And in many ways, 1931, 2025 are the bookends for Barbara Mills. But there will be stories that come after, there are stories that come before, but we hold those years of her life within those bookends. But in their song called Bookends, they wrote the shortest song that they ever wrote. It has just a few lines. Time it was, and what a time it was. A time of innocence, a time of confidences. And here's where I think they truly are theologians. They said, long ago it must be, I have a photograph. Preserve your memories. They're all that's left you. It's taken me 30 years as a rabbi to understand that I'm in the business of preserving memories. That's what a funeral's for. That's what a wedding's for. That's what a baby naming's for. We preserve those memories, we collect those memories, and we keep them and we hold on to them for the rest of our lives. And we share them with others, and those memories keep growing. Those memories keep evolving. Those memories keep expanding. And that's our job. We preserve memories. And there's no better way to preserve memories than looking at a picture or telling a story. And everyone has a Barbara story to share. Everyone has a piece. What Larry Kushner teaches, everyone has a piece of someone else's puzzle. Sometimes they know it, sometimes they don't. And when you present your piece, which is worthless to another, whether you know it or not, whether they know it or not, you are a messenger from God Most High. Everyone here got a piece of Barbara's puzzle. And now we hold on to it, we share it, we give it away. We preserve those memories. And it's to the family that we turn to first and foremost to preserve those memories for all of us. So Marla, I invite you to come forward first to begin to pay tribute to your mom. Come on up.
Thank you all for coming. It means a lot to my family. Those of you who know me remember that my mom and I had a difficult relationship when I was a young adult. She was always criticizing me, and I could never do anything right. Really, I didn't understand it because I thought I was pretty good. And later, though, she told me she thought I was pretty good too. She was just trying to fine-tune me. Actually, the first good things I ever did was I had Stephen and Jordan. And she adored them, and she and Marvin were wonderful grandparents and very involved. She was still a little persnickety when I married John. But after a few years, Marvin convinced her that John was good for me. And she warmed very much to Felicia, and she marveled how the boys got along with Felicia. My mom led a really full life. She had lots of friends. She traveled. She was a golfer, a good golfer. She had people in Mission Hills and all the Florida living. But she never hesitated to stop if I or my siblings needed something. She and Marv bought a place in the city, and they had a few good years there. But when Marvin passed, she continued to really like being downtown, and she blossomed. She was having a fabulous time. So I was shocked when she called me one day to say that she's moving to the V. I mean, we never had even discussed anything. I'm moving to the V, and they have an apartment available, so I'm moving in 2 weeks. So I'm like, Mom, I can't help you move in 2 weeks. I'm having knee surgery. She goes, well, that's okay. I'll just do it myself. And she did. She delved into life there and made many new friends and reconnected with old ones. I started teaching an art class there, and she came, and she loved it, and she even bragged about me. I don't think she even knew what I did, really, so it made me feel good. My mom was a lung cancer survivor for 20 years. She actually had lung cancer when she was 71, which is my age now, so, and I thought her life was over, but it wasn't. When she moved to the V after a few years, she had a stroke, and it left her with short-term memory loss, and then later she lost sight in one eye. She amazed me by joking about it. When my kids called her on the phone in the hospital, she said, hi, it's your one eye, one lung Nana. She kept moving, and she did it with amazing energy. One time, when I was driving her home from a doctor's appointment, she goes, can't you hurry up? I have a game at 1 o'clock. So I said, well, what are you playing? Mahjong, canasta, bridge? I'll call someone for you. She goes, I can't remember, but when I get there, they'll tell me, so you just drive. So I did. Just a couple of months ago, I was having lunch with her in the dining room, and she finished her meal, and she had her favorite chocolate cake for dessert. The waiter comes by and says, Mrs. Mills, can I bring you anything else? And she says, I think I'll have a piece of chocolate cake. I said, Mom, you just had chocolate cake. And she said, I guess I'll have another. And that was my mom.
Cindy, I invite you to come forward.
good to see all the faces here, people that love my mom and loved her through us, her children. And Marla and Michael have been so good. I'm the one that lives far away in Virginia. They've taken such good care of her on a daily basis. Vanji, her caretaker, made her beautiful every day. My mom is, you might hear there was two parts of Barbara. One was a real bitch, and one, in the last 20 years, was the most beautiful person I've ever known. How many people can say that, How many people change that much? She used to very, very much judge people. Marla said, I'll have the cake. When I was 16 and I brought a piece of chocolate cake to my table, she'd say, "You're eating that? You're eating a piece of cake?" So we know two Barbaras. I think our children only know one Barbara, the fabulous grandmother that she was, and really helped heal me so much with how good she was to my son, Eli. Just there for him, positive energy to all of them. And I think in the last 20 years, she just became a very beautiful person. And I kept saying, how many people keep flowering at 70 and 80? There she is in a kayak at 85. I'm like, she wasn't afraid to do things. She was fearless, really, and very strong. She loved my husband. She accepted him. She wasn't always so accepting. So I said to Phil, she really loves you, Phil. She loved all her grandchildren, John, and she just eating like a sushi dinner was such a thrill for her with the whole family. Eli couldn't be here. He's not defending his thesis today, but he's presenting what he will defend. And right before his bar mitzvah, she took him to Greece. I believe she took, till she was too old, almost all the grandchildren on a trip by themselves, which what a way to, make a very long-lasting relationship. And I know that Eli, because of that trip, has a very special place. So this is what he sent. He says you can say this. Besides, of course, loving her as my grandmother, I enjoyed Nana's presence as a friend. I'm not a big talker, and neither was she in her later days. So we could sit in mostly silence and enjoy each other's company at our own speed. We had an inside joke that was both like the comfort of just holding a tissue, that we both liked the comfort of just holding a tissue, even if we didn't use it. Every time I saw her, I would check to see if she had one in her hand, and sure enough, she did. I love her, Nana. We all loved her very much. And I know you all did too, through us. Thank you. Thank you. God, I'm going to start carrying a tissue everywhere too.
Michael, I invite you to come forward.
Thanks, everybody, for coming in person and online. It means a lot to all of us. So going through some things I have of my mom's, came across a letter that she wrote to all her kids many years ago. There's no date on this letter. I'm guessing it was approximately, I'm dating myself, approximately 40 years ago. 1985, I'm give or take maybe 5 years or so ago.
It's a typewriter, so yeah.
Yeah, definitely a typewriter. It says, just going to read this letter. I'm going to read it slow because it's sometimes hard to get through. It says, "To my children on Mother's Day, I am writing this letter because I want to leave you a legacy of my feelings for you. For unfortunately, you will not always have me around to help you, to criticize you, and to support you forever. But I want to tell you how I feel so you will have me forever. I am so proud of all of you. Each one of you have had your own struggle, and each one will do well. I have a philosophy of life which I will like to leave to you. This life and I have had a fight. My life has not been easy, but I have promised myself that I will try and fight until the day I die. And so, my children, I want you to fight for what you want. Don't ever give up trying. And I hope you all have easy lives. But life isn't easy, and probably your lives won't be either. So, my children, don't ever give up, because it is never too late. For in the struggle, you will all become a person you yourselves can be proud of. It is difficult to be a parent and a mother. Maybe someday, when you are, you will realize the choices that have to be made. Many parents are afraid to risk, afraid to disagree with their children, afraid to be a parent for fear that their children won't like them or that they'll reject them. I understand those feelings and I have those fears. But I have chosen to be a parent, and I have to tell you honestly what I think and what I feel. I know that there was times when our relationship was strained, but the love was always there. I know that you know that all I want for you is your happiness and well-being. Whatever you do or whatever you choose, I'll probably be the first to argue and the first to support you. And so, my children, know that you are my every breath and in my heart always. And the best present I gave you was each other. Always be close and love each other. For you are a part of my hand, and each finger is you. They can work separately, but as a whole hand, they need each other and will be strong. Love, Mom.
Amazing. That is amazing.
Thank you.
Mike, thank you for those words. Those were her words, but to be able to hold on to that letter for so long and to be able to share it today kind of brings it full circle, and that just beautiful. And now I turn to the grandchildren. Do you guys want to come up together or come up separately? Whatever order you want.
Well, when I think of my Nana, definitely the first thing I think of is just how she always shared how proud she was. You hear that she was tough in her earlier years, but with the grandchildren, she was proud. Sometimes even embellishing a little bit as well. So that's what I think of when I think of her, and definitely always do and will remember her as I play golf, particularly after an errant shot, which I don't really remember her ever having. So we'll miss you, Nana. Thank you.
Remember, Nana is always generous, always a present, always a gift. When Tala, who might have been 8 or 9, told Nana she wanted to be a dolphin trainer. We all got a trip to Mexico to go swim with the dolphins. But in the last 15, 20 years, I can honestly say the best gift that Nana gave all of us is the example of how to age with joy. That no matter the setbacks, the losses, the physical illness, that you can choose to age with joy and put on some lipstick and make sure your eyebrows look dark and your hair's done and just enjoy. And so for that, Nana, it's the greatest gift of all to have that example. Thank you.
I always felt like I had the greatest Nana. She was effusive with her praise. She told me I looked like Brad Pitt so many times I almost started to believe it. In high school, she flipped me the keys to her sports car. Coming out of college, she flipped me the keys to her apartment downtown. She was always amazing, but honestly, I think the thing I loved about Nana so much was she was the only person that could disobey and overrule my mom. And we had a lot of fun doing that. I'll just share one of the stories of that. We used to go down to Florida and fly and visit her, and she would take us to the flea markets, which we loved, going to the flea markets and buy all this junk. But one time we saw this fake diamond earring, which had a magnet on the back side of it. So me and Nana decided to get that and then put me with the earring on the flight home. And so when my mom picked me up from the airport, she almost had a heart attack because she thought Nana let me get my ear pierced at 7 years old. But that's who Nana was. She always found a way to have fun for us and be a great Nana. And it's been amazing to see my mom be a great nanny for the boys. So thank you.
Time it was, and what a time it was. A time of innocence, a time of confidences. Long ago it must be, I have a photograph, preserve your memories. They're all that's left you. You have all shared such beautiful memories, and I know that you'll continue to do so. And in doing so, you keep her alive. Every person dies twice in their lifetime. Every person dies twice. The first time is when we stop breathing, and there's a service, and we return the body to the earth. And for Barbara Mills, that was 93 years. But the second time is when the last person who knew her or knew of her stops talking about her, and then her memory dies. I've come to understand that we don't have a whole lot of control over the first time. We can exercise more, we can eat better, we can lead wholesome lives, but there's no guarantee. 7 people went to a parade in Highland Park and never made it home on the 4th of July. 1,200 people woke up on October 7th and didn't make it to lunchtime. We have very little control over the first time, but we have a lot of control over the second time by the way we live, and by the way all of you remembered your mom and your Nana. You keep her alive and will continue to the next generation and the one after that. She was, in so many ways, a woman who loved chocolate, who told it like it was, no hold back, who liked fine wine mellowed with age, who got richer and richer and more joyous, who started out critical and tough and literally went through a personality change to be incredibly sweet. A woman who blossomed late in life, who excelled at being a Nana, who lived well, who laughed often, who loved much. Barbara was born to Morris and Ida, along with her sister Joan and brother Howard. She attended Sullivan High School and U of I for a short time. I love that they brought home Barbara from college, who fell in love with Howard, and Barbara and Joan were always so very close, truly as siblings. She met and married Fred Goldfarb, and were blessed with 4 children, Marla, Cindy, Susan of blessed memory, and Michael. Barbara and Fred divorced when Michael, you were just 2 or 3. And she was single for a long time. She had to figure it out, how to make a living, how to raise 4 kids, how to survive, and it wasn't going to be easy, and she knew that. And she always stayed a step ahead. She figured out what she needed to do. You said she drove a school bus. She taught nursery school. She did whatever she needed to do. She ultimately met Marvin Mills, who was the nicest guy. And over time they moved. They bought a place in the city and even a fancy Z3 sports car. And even though she never knew how to put gas in the car, she did the best she could. Marvin could diffuse any situation and made everyone feel at ease. That helped Barbara immensely. She modeled the way to keep learning, to live well. Family and Judaism were always important, but Barbara was never religious. Only Mike had a bar mitzvah. She went to Israel. She always loved to gather for holidays and special occasions. There were huge Passover Seders with the whole family, 40 people strong, with each family providing updates. Those were special family moments. And later in life, she blossomed. Cindy, I liked how you said it. She kept flowering. She kept flowering. She was a wonderful grandmother. She got funnier as she got older. She had a distinctive laugh. She always knew her own limitations. She was blessed with 1 million friends. Her doorbell and phone were always ringing. Everyone called when she was in the hospital. She was, as you heard, an excellent golfer who always hit it straight down the middle, who walked, who was incredibly active, and who loved to win at bingo. She was social, and she ended up living a very full and complete life. A cancer diagnosis at age 71, a stroke, a broken hip, a wheelchair for a while all affected her, yet she kept going. She was practical, a creative thinker, who was always one step ahead of what she needed to do. And she would grill you, Mike, always looking to push you as the baby, to push you forward. If you really wanted something, Stephen and Jordan knew to always go to Nana first. She could override your mom. And I love that she took you to the flea market in Boca, never criticized you, and once sent not 1, but 3 watches, totaling, or 12 watches, depending on who's telling the story. But what's better, one good watch or 12 cheap watches? The answer is clear. She did a good job being proud of all of you and the families that you've raised. And of course, the death of her daughter was so hard. She struggled for a long time, and that affected Mom in many ways. And so we think of her as well. Everyone felt like they were her favorite. She took you on trips, enjoyed spending time with family. And I love that after her 90th birthday party at the Glen Club, she turned to you, Marla, and asked, well, what should I do now? She had lived a full life, and Marla said, well, are you ready to die? And she said, no. So you said, keep on living. And so she did, for as long as she possibly could. And that letter that she wrote to all of you many, many years ago is truly a treasure. And it should be photocopied and sent to the next generation as well, to hold on to and to know that those were her words. She admitted that it was a hard life. She admitted that she was critical. She admitted all of those things, but she also knew that love would conquer all. She taught you always to look at both sides of every situation. She taught you to compromise. She was always ahead of the game. She would do the right thing at the right time, ahead of schedule. She taught you to be social, to have lots of friends. and don't take yourself too seriously. She taught you to think ahead and how you want to be for the rest of your life. She understood that. She aged well. And she wanted to be young and cool. She maintained her physical activity for as long as she could. She was constantly moving. And even though she had just one lung for the last 20 plus years of her life, she took great pride in still being active for as long as she possibly could. She loved to be around family and was blessed to see her children's children's children. 4 generations. L'dor vador. From generation to generation. And so we celebrate a life well lived. We measure lives not in time, but in grace, in the joy with which they live, and the love that they leave behind. Barbara Mills leaves a lot of love behind, and now we hold on to it. Merritt Malloy said it best. When I die, he said, when I die, cry for your brother walking the street beside you. And when you need to give me something, give him what you need to give to me. I want to leave you something better than words or sounds. Look for me in the people I've known or loved, and if you cannot give me away, at least let me live in your eyes and not on your mind. You can love me most by letting hands touch hands, by letting bodies touch bodies, and by letting go of children who need to be free. Love doesn't die. People do. So when all that's left of me is love, give me away. If you remember nothing else from today, I hope that you remember. Love doesn't die. People do. At every funeral I've ever officiated at, I've said the following words. The dust returns to the earth. The spirit or soul returns to God. It's only the house of the spirit which we place within the earth. The spirit or soul can never die. Ecclesiastes wrote those words some 2,000 years ago. And that is simply the truth of a funeral. The only thing that we place within this casket is a body that was thoroughly used up and a body that was so beautifully cared for as long as possible. But she got everything out of that body possible. And now that body deserves to rest. But at the moment of death, the body and the soul separate. The soul returns to God. I've buried lots of bodies in the 30 years that I've been a rabbi, but never one soul. The body and the soul separate. And as Ecclesiastes said, the soul returns to God. Every morning, Jews pray, Elohai neshama shanatata bi tehurahi. The soul that you have given me, O God, is pure. You created and formed it. You breathed that soul into me, and within me you sustain it. And as long as I have breath, therefore, I give thanks to you, God. We take 22,000 breaths a day. But there comes a time when we take our last breath. Ever wonder why we say, God bless you, when we sneeze? Because the soul almost leaves the body. Your heart stops just for a beat. But it doesn't. And so you say, God bless you, because that wasn't your moment. But that moment comes for everyone. And so we thank God for the body, and we return that body to the earth. But that spirit or soul lives on for eternity. And we celebrate that soul by lighting a candle and by honoring that soul by saying Kaddish, a prayer that does not talk about death, but rather reaffirms our commitment to life. So we say Kaddish here at the chapel. We'll say it again at the cemetery for a private burial. We'll say it tonight at about 7:30 at Minyan. We'll say it on Saturday night at about 7 for Minyan. On Friday night, we'll say her name and say Kaddish at Am Shalom, and we'll do so for the next 30 days. We'll do so at the Yizkor service at Passover, and then at Shavuot, and then again on Yom Kippur, along with all who have died in this entire past year. And you will continue to say Kaddish on the anniversary of her death. We rise together to ask for God to watch over her soul. Please rise. El Malei Rachamim Shochen Bamromim Hamsei Menucha Nechona Tachat Kanfei Hashrina Im kedoshima teharim kazohar harakia mazhirim et nishmat Barbara Mills, shahalachal olamo. God, full of compassion, dwelling in the heights and the depths, grant perfect rest under the wings of your presence to our loved one, to Barbara, who has entered eternity. May she find refuge forever under the shadow of God's wings. May her soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is her inheritance. May she rest in peace. And let us all say together, Amen. And on the back of the service supplement, we say the Kaddish prayer for the very first time in her honor and in her memory. Together, Yitgadal v'yitgadash Shamei Rabbah, Be'almad divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, B'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei dekol Beit Yisrael, B'agala v'zman kariv v'imru Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah mavarach leolam omeh omaya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitroman v'yitnaseh, V'yit hadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei dekudsha brichu. La'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbachata v'nechamata. Damiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya. V'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. V'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav. Hu yaseh shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. V'imru amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn and comfort all who are bereaved, and let us say, Amen. Please be seated.
This concludes the funeral here at the chapel. The interment is going to be a private family interment. The family will be sitting Shiva at the Snyder residence, 25 West Honeysuckle Road in Lake Forest, where they'll be there today approximately 2 o'clock until this evening at 8 p.m., Friday 12 p.m. to 4 p.m., and then Saturday evening from 6 to 9 p.m. For those that have joined on the Zoom, there's a charity, 2 charities on the website that the family has requested you make memorial contributions. And for those here in the attendance at the chapel, that information is on the service folder that you received when you arrived. The following individuals have been asked to act as pallbearers: Stephen, Jordan, Jonathan, Philip, and Scott Brown. If we can all rise and have the pallbearers come forward.
Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Go your way, for God has called you. Go your way, and may God be with you. May your righteousness go before you, and the glory of God receive you. Hamakom yenachem etchem, patok sha'ar avilei Tzion v'Yerushalayim. May God comfort all of you among the mourners of Zion and Jerusalem. May she rest in peace. Amen. Friends, this concludes the service. You may return to your cars.